House will come to order. This morning, the pledge will be said by Sophie Cirallo from Bromwell Elementary, Carter Kaiser from McMean Elementary, and William Newton from Steck Elementary in Denver, Colorado. They are guests of Representative Hansen.
Will you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Randall, please call the roll.
Great work, guys. All right.
Representatives Arndt. Arndt. Baisley.
I would get the KU.
Beckman.
The KU jacket.
Benavides. Benavides.
Excused.
Bird. Bockenfeld. Buck. Buckner. Buenteo. Caraveo. Carver. Catlin. Coleman.
Get it from somebody else and I'll do it.
Cutter. Duran.
Okay, but use the...
Eskar.
Excused.
Exum. Froelich. Representative Benavides is present. Galindo. Garnett. Geithner. Gonzalez Gutierrez. Gray. Hansen. Herod. Herod. Good morning. Representative Eskar is present.
Excused.
Hooten. Humphrey. Jackson. Jaquez Lewis. Kennedy. Kip. Kraftharp. Landgraf. Larson. Lewis. Liston. Lontine. McCluskey. McKean. McLaughlin. Melton. Michelson Janae. Mollica. Mollica.
Excused.
Neville.
Excused.
Pelton. Ransom. Rich. Roberts. Roberts.
Yeah.
Sane.
I want to wait, make sure they're here.
Sandridge. Singer. Singer.
Excused.
Sirota. Snyder. Soper. Sullivan. Tipper. Titone. Valdez A. Valdez D. Van Winkle. Weissman. Williams. Wilson. Madam Speaker.
Thank you. With 58 present, 6 excused, and 1 vacant, we have a quorum. Representative Caraveo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of Monday, January 28, 2019 be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative. You've heard the motion that the journal be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Transportation and Local Government Committee. We are meeting today, our first Tuesday upon adjournment meeting. We don't have any bills to be heard, but we will be hearing from the Municipal League, the Special District Association, CCI, and counties and commissioners acting together. Get to learn a little bit more about the folks who we govern over. So I will see you upon adjournment.
Representative Tracy Kraftart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Business Affairs and Labor Committee will be meeting upon adjournment today. We'll be hearing 2 bills, House Bill 1057 and Senate Bill 28.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Speaker. This is a reminder for Judiciary Committee members. We have 3 bills before us this afternoon. House Bill 1025, House Bill 1073, Senate Bill 58, House Committee Room 112, 130. Be there. Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Education Committee, we have joint education tomorrow morning. Do not forget to join us. The governor is coming in to speak with us about, guess what? Education. And today we are doing bills 1094, 1066, and 1100. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Health and Insurance Committee members, we are meeting upon adjournment this morning in room 107, where we will hear House Bill 1019 and 1069. And while I have your attention, I hope, I just want to put on your radar that we are meeting upon adjournment tomorrow as well as a joint health committee to hear a presentation from the Joint Budget Committee and a presentation from the IDD waitlist. Thank you.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. It is such a pleasure to serve with you.
Such a pleasure to serve with you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today is a special day for House District 6. I have a stellar student from every single school in my district here with me today, and their parents and grandparents. I would ask for your help in welcoming all the HD6 Stellar students who are along the wall on that side, along with their parents and grandparents in the gallery. Thanks for being at the house today.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I've been asked to remind you of the Housing Developer Reception tonight at the University Club. Be there.
Are there any other announcements and introductions? Members, I'm going to put us into a brief recess because we're supposed to do a tribute for CU President Bruce Benson, and I think he's on his way. So the House will be in a brief recess. Members, I believe the Capitol Choir is supposed to be coming into the well. Where is Representative Jackson? Representative Jackson. Representative Jackson. No. Representative Jackson. I believe the Capitol Choir has a birthday.
Buck. Oh. Okay. Oh my goodness. Was so remiss. It was not on my calendar. But we do have a birthday of one of my favorite people in the world. So members of the Capitol Choir, I see most of you down here. To the representative in the purple. Might we begin? Yes. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Representative Bob. Happy birthday to you. We love you.
Happy birthday, Representative Buck.
Sorry about that. I didn't know what you're calling me.
The House will come back to order. We have a tribute, but the tributee is not here, so we are going to start with seconds. Representative Jackson. You've heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Jackson will take the chair for second reading.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen, and of course, if you're using your iPads and not read unless requested, bills will be laid over upon motion of the majority leader. And yes, the coat rule is relaxed. Majority Leader Gannett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1046 to the end of the second reading calendar today.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, House Bill 1046 will be moved to the end of the calendar as requested by the Majority Leader. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1001.
House Bill 1001, Representative Kennedy, also Senators Moreno and Rankin, concerning hospital transparency measures required to analyze the efficacy of hospital delivery system reform and incentive payments.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1001 and the Health and Insurance Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With your permission, I'll speak to the bill generally because the committee report included a strike below, and so essentially the strike below is the bill. House Bill 1001 is about transparency in hospital spending in Colorado. As we've looked at the high cost of health care that people are paying that is impacting consumers and businesses alike, it's been a real struggle for people to keep up, particularly in the parts of rural Colorado that are facing some of the highest health care costs in our country. So House Bill 1001 is taking a hard look at hospital costs, which account for 39% of our total health care spending in Colorado. And what the bill with the amendments is attempting to do is requiring all the hospitals in the state to annually submit their Medicare cost reports, their audited financial statements, and a number of other pieces of data to the State Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing for them to analyze and put out an annual report. Now, what this is going to do is a couple different things. One, there's a function for our State Department where they'll be using this data to craft incentive payments to start paying for value instead of volume in our healthcare system. So as we move towards that conversation of paying for value, this is going to be a huge step forward. Secondly, it is going to be of value to consumers, businesses, and insurance companies who are negotiating contracts with hospitals. If we are looking at two hospitals side by side and we could see this hospital is very efficient with their practices, but this hospital is spending money on all these new capital projects that may not be necessary or high administrative costs that are not contributing directly to a value to a patient, then an insurance company is going to choose to have the more efficient hospital in their network, and then the businesses are going to be able to choose an insurance plan that is going to give them the best value for the dollars that they are spending. So I think this is a great step forward to try to improve efficiency in our hospital system, try to drive the conversation for value, and ultimately reduce costs that consumers and businesses are paying for health care. So when we get to the point, I will ask for your support. The committee report itself included a strike below amendment that included a number of technical changes. I've been working for months with the Hospital Association to address all of their concerns about the confidentiality of data, about the frequency of reporting, and a number of other provisions. Many of those were addressed in the committee report, and we could talk about those if anyone would like. We did not complete our work as of the time of the committee, and I have continued working with the Hospital Association on amendments since then, and I am prepared to offer 5 amendments this morning that are together getting the Hospital Association to a position of support, which means that we are now supported by all the consumer organizations in Colorado, the Hospital Association, the Medical Society, and the Association of Health Plans, as well as the Colorado Business Group on Health. So I think we've done a lot of work to try to address all of the concerns with this bill. And with that, Madam Chair, I move Amendment L13 to the committee report and ask that it be displayed.
Representative Kennedy, the amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a simple amendment that adds a definition to major payer group. One of the things we're seeking in this bill is data by payer type, which would be Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance, among others, This just clearly defines what the major payer group is so that the hospitals know exactly how to report. I ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L013 to the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L013 is adopted. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L14 to the committee report and ask that it be displayed.
Representative Kennedy, the amendment L14 is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment L14 was a little bit trickier to navigate. What we were trying to do with this amendment is make very clear what sort of data is held to be proprietary and confidential, and thus only to be released to the public in a form that is aggregated and de-identified. I think we worked closely with the hospitals to find an agreement on what exactly should be held confidential without going too far and keeping data from the public eye that the public really does deserve to see. We also made really clear that hospitals making a good faith effort to comply with this law will not be penalized if for some reason there is an issue with their data. I ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L14 to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment L14 is adopted. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L15 to the committee report.
The amendment L15 is properly before us. Representative Kennedy, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment simply clarifies the definition of hospital by adding a cross-reference to the appropriate section of statute. I ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L15? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L15 to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L17 and ask that it be displayed. Amendment to the committee report, that is.
All right, Representative Kennedy, the amendment is properly before us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment L17 is addressing another concern that was brought to our attention by the hospitals. One of the pieces of data we're asking for in the bill is the audited financial statements from the hospitals. Well, what we have learned is that when there is a hospital group that might have a headquarters outside of Colorado, they only have one audited financial statement, and that is for their entire national organization, which I think that it was fairly brought to our attention that would be inappropriate for us to ask for as a state for the national finances for businesses operating outside of Colorado. So we've been working on figuring out what is an alternative to the audited financial statements in the event that those audits cannot be provided. The language in paragraph B, some of that is a duplicate of the language that's in the existing bill, and just clarifies a few pieces about how we define other corporate structure. And the language in paragraph C is talking about the reconciliation of the consolidated financial statement, which is really the big issue when we're trying to understand the difference between the Medicare cost report and the financial audits. So this one's pretty technical. If there are questions, I would be happy to discuss with anyone. But this is another amendment that we worked closely with the Hospital Association to craft, and I would ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L17 to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L18 and ask that it be displayed.
Representative Kennedy, Amendment L18 is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The original bill did ask for data that goes back 6 years to make sure we're not only getting this year's data, but that we're able to start comparing cost trends over the last several years. It was brought to our attention that some of this is impracticable because hospitals may not have been collecting that data over the last 6 years. And so what this amendment does is it clarifies that we are asking for, first of all, what you're seeing in Roman numeral 1, the Medicare cost report. In Roman numeral 2, the audited financial statements or the alternatives as we've spelled out here. And then in Roman numeral 3, those are other data as practicable. We ask for that to be submitted over the period starting from fiscal year 2011-2012 until present when they make their first submittal. Again, this is a compromise we worked on with the Hospital Association, and I ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L018 to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment passes. Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members, for your indulgence with all of those amendments. Those are the extent of the amendments I intend to bring to the committee report. Now that we've amended those, if we pass the bill in its current status, we have the support of all of the stakeholders. I know of no organization currently opposing this bill after the work we've put into it. So I will ask for your support on the committee report.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move House Bill, an amendment to House Bill 1001 L019 and ask that it be displayed to the committee report.
All right, Representative Beckman, the amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sometimes you just have to cut through the red tape and understand that what we're doing is not working. This amendment would actually require that in this transparency bill, which we all want to be very transparent with our constituents, that it would include the number of beds and days taxed per hospital pursuant to the Healthcare Affordability and Sustainability Fee, which is the hospital provider fee, the bed tax, and where the money received through the fees are redistributed. If the profit margins for the hospitals are such that they can absorb the hospital expense, then the Healthcare Affordability and Sustainability Fee shall be eliminated. So 9 years ago, we went down this path, and it was very clear that this was an idea to compensate cost for Medicaid expansion, and it was promised to lower insurance rates for all. It was called the hospital provider fee, and this is asking for us to relook at the $7 billion that we have put into the hospitals to try to lower costs of insurance. That was the commitment we made to the people of our state when we added an additional almost 6% tax onto hospital beds and day surgery facilities. The money was intended to cost shift to people with private insurance to lower the cost for everyone. But private payers, as we all know, I mean, we know this. We don't have to dig in the hospital. We know this. We don't need this bill necessarily to tell us that the cost shift, there's never been a trickle down. And in fact, the increase of insurance has been growing pretty exponentially. There's a cost shift actually to private payers that should have been reduced by this hospital provider fee. And what are we seeing? We're seeing 40% profit in hospitals. We're seeing comments of hospitals are charging 66% of their cost. So a way to pull this back in and to really hold accountable these hospitals and to lower the cost of insurance and costs throughout the state of Colorado would be to lower this hospital provider fee, the 5.9%, and try to limit the hospital's profit because it's not working as it is intended. So what this amendment will do, it will be very transparent, and that's what we're aiming at. We're aiming at transparency. It would be to really align how much people are getting for the hospital provider fee. If they can absorb it into their profits, then they no longer need this to cover uncompensated care. So I'd ask for a yes vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I ask for a no vote on this amendment. I do appreciate Representative Beckman's attention to the profit of some of the hospitals in the Denver metro area. We have seen some numbers that are pretty startling. But what was left unsaid is that the rural hospitals in Colorado are still really struggling. There are a number of places in this state where they are only getting by because of the money we put into them through the Hospital Accountability and Sustainability Enterprise. If we were to do anything that were to endanger those funds, not only would we lose tremendous state investment, but significant federal matching dollars that are currently helping keep rural hospitals in Colorado afloat. I think that the data that is being asked for by this amendment is largely already available in the annual report that's put out by the Chase Board, and asking for this data in this report would be redundant at best. And endangering the hospital provider fee, also known as the Chase, would be incredibly dangerous for Colorado's rural hospitals. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also ask for a no vote on this amendment. While Representative Kennedy mentioned the danger to our rural healthcare hospitals, I would also like to remind you all that Denver Health was a leader in bringing forth the hospital provider fee in 2009 because they are our state's safety net hospital, and as such were being basically swamped by indigent care at that time that was not being paid for, and they asked for this so that it would help them pay for indigent care. And to do this would be devastating to Denver Health as well. And while there may be some actually there are hospitals in the Denver metro area that have reported a 40% profit margin, Denver Health's margin is 1.9%. So I asked for a no vote on this. This is information that we do have available, so thank you.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so this amendment is to really reduce the cost of health care where we can. It doesn't automatically reduce the hospital provider fee. It actually says that if the profit margin for the hospitals are such that they can absorb the hospital's expense, then the health care affordability and sustainable fees shall be eliminated. I actually think this dovetails very well into this transparency bill. Some of the rural hospitals in the last couple of years that we have heard where profit margins were very tight are actually expanding now. I think we have to take a look at what is actually happening in the rural areas and in the metro areas. But the fact is that the $7 billion that we have put in to the hospital provider fee, the commitment was that it would lower cost of healthcare and cost of insurance, and it has not done that. So this isn't, it isn't a cookie cutter solution. What it is, it's looking at the profit margins of the hospital. If they can absorb the hospital provider fee, the bed tax, then we need to lower the tax on those most vulnerable in our communities, those independent payers, those private insurance payers, those people who pay on their own, whose health care cost is has grown exponentially. This is a first step. It was a 5.9% tax on beds. We called it a fee in Colorado because Tabor didn't allow us to put a tax. In the rest of the nation, it is called a tax. But we could really start looking at lowering this. I think it would balance out the capital growth that we're seeing in some of these hospitals. And I think it would work very well with Representative Kennedy's bill.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I urge a yes vote on this. The concerns we heard about this amendment, they just don't play out. The amendment itself addresses the profit margins of hospitals and saying if the hospitals themselves can actually sustain without the hospital provider fee, that the hospital provider fee, they don't get the reimbursement. So we shouldn't have these huge profit margins of hospitals on the backs of taxpayers. So if you have a rural hospital that can't afford that because their margins aren't there, this doesn't pertain to them. It says it in the amendment itself. So I urge a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L019 to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The noes have it. The amendment is lost. Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I appreciate the discussion on the last one. One of the things that I find concerning if we're going to be talking about a transparency bill is let's make it true transparency, something that can actually benefit the consumer. So I move L021 and ask for it to be displayed.
The amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, all this says is that the hospital provider fee shall be disclosed to the patient on their bill. If we're going to be talking about true transparency, why shouldn't we at least disclose that fee to the patient themselves instead of having it hidden in some other complicated billing? Just disclose the fee. It's a simple transparency amendment, and I urge a yes vote.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Interestingly enough, this amendment is very relatable to a bill that I've heard several times. And actually, it does not affect individual patients' bills when, if they would see this amount. So I would ask for a no vote. This doesn't do what the minority leader suggests, so thank you.
Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would urge a yes vote on this because this gets to the heart of where we need to go ultimately if we want to control costs in healthcare, if we want to bring them down, and that is to engage the market forces. So the consumer is the patient, the consumer is the one who pays the bill ultimately through whatever avenue, and if they can start seeing this up front, then this would move us towards that, which is where I think we need to go ultimately to control healthcare costs. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, members, if we're going to be talking about true transparency, we need transparency that's going to actually affect the people of Colorado. The people of Colorado cannot see this fee disclosed in their bills right now because of state law. All this would do is change that and say that this shall be disclosed to them. If we are going to be demanding by law that they have a fee attached to them for overstaying a night in a hospital, we should at least disclose that to the consumers. It's the least we can do for the people of Colorado is be honest with them in their bill, and I urge a yes vote.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I won't repeat what, Madam Chair, I won't repeat what Representative Lontine said. I will just second her ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L021. All those to the Health and Insurance Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The amendment is lost. Is there any further discussion on the Health and Insurance Committee report? Seeing none, Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And folks, we make some pretty large decisions down here, and we all have the best intent. But I've always heard it before saying that when a bill is not ready for prime time, we've put 5 amendments on this major piece of legislation that affects all of us around the state of Colorado. So I ask, Madam Chair, that we refer this bill back to committee, to the Health Insurance Committee. Thank you. So I move that we move this bill back to committee in the Health and Insurance Committee.
Is this just an up or down vote?
Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Caucus Chair, and I would urge a no vote on that motion. The sponsor has done an incredible amount of work, not only with stakeholders on this on 1001, but also keeping members of the committee updated on all of the work that he was doing. He's delivered a packet of the amendments that we were discussing to the committee report today to all the members, and so I would urge a no vote on this motion.
Representative Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Representative Kennedy is to be commended for his incredible work over the past 3 years, as I understand, at least, probably working on this. I, as a new kid on the block, have been learning a great deal from how do you work something that's meaningful and far-reaching as this one is. So it's phenomenal, all the work that Representative Kennedy has been doing, and towards transparency to try to reduce the costs. Also to be commended is how he's worked with industry to address all of their concerns. I'm extremely impressed with that. Another big lesson for me learned in working with all the stakeholders, everyone affected, and everyone here in the room who has a stake in that as well. Also, a big shout out to the industry who has worked and come towards Representative Kennedy in order to have something that they can live with. All that said, I would urge a yes vote to the referral motion that's on the floor right now, because this is of the onerous nature. When government gets itself involved in industry, it increases the cost of industry, and it does just the opposite eventually that what we're trying to do. I think the right approach is market forces, to try to institute market forces and to create that world instead of causing the industry to act in a way that is not natural to their industry with their consumers. So with all due respect to Representative Kennedy, I would have to urge a yes vote on the referral motion.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Assistant Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I also urge a yes vote on this. We saw 5 pretty robust amendments, and I understand that members of the committee might have been given a packet beforehand. I myself would actually like to see how those amendments affect in a clean bill, and that's what we could get if we actually did refer this back to committees, because I myself was not given a packet of these amendments and haven't had a chance to reach out to different stakeholders myself, haven't had a chance to talk to my constituents myself based on these amendments, so I think it's just a little bit too early to be voting on such a robust piece of legislation, just having seen these amendments this morning.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the question before us is the motion to move the bill back to the Health and Insurance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The motion fails. Now, is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us now is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The committee report is adopted. To the bill. Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, thank you for a good discussion on this policy. This is incredibly important for the future of Colorado because of the healthcare costs that our consumers and businesses alike are facing right now. Now, if you've heard me in committee, you've heard me discuss before that I'm not trying to point the finger at any particular industry, whether it be hospitals or pharmaceuticals or insurance companies or doctors. I believe that they are all out there trying to be part of a system that works. But what I believe we're experiencing in healthcare in Colorado is a market failure. And I believe that the first step we need to take to addressing a market failure is more cost transparency in the system. So I ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion to the bill? Yes, there is. Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I understand the intent of this bill. My concern is that the bill itself as written is actually going to increase costs in Colorado because all the bill is really requiring is another report, another thing that a business is going to have to comply with, and it might have some transparency to the government, but it lacks transparency to the people of Colorado. So we can compile a report and require a business to report to different government agencies, but that's not going to actually do anything to help the citizens, the people of Colorado. The people of Colorado need true transparency that they can look at and make decisions on accordingly. If we just have a large bill that's going to require several different reports to go to an agency, That's really not going to do the individual consumers, the individual people, the working families of Colorado any good in decreasing their costs. In fact, it's going to add more compliance costs and increased costs that will eventually be passed on to the consumers.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do believe in Colorado that we are at a fork in the road on, do we move toward a more of a free market run healthcare system, or do we move toward a more government run healthcare system? So this bill will be about regulations and reports and cost equalizations and a lot of information going into departments. But what is really concerning to me is that this has nothing to do with transparency for the person that is buying the service. It doesn't require the provider or healthcare providers or healthcare facilities, pharmacies, physicians, or insurance companies to post their prices and information in and about if they're in network, and to send an itemized bill to the consumer, and then to find out what the insurance company is paying for. So it sounds good, transparency, but transparency to a system that is moving more into government-run healthcare instead of really allowing the consumer to have transparency. What is this costing us? This is not even, one of the amendments actually tightens up this bill to where consumers don't know some of the information about cost, and I think that is the opposite direction that we need to go in. If we really want our healthcare market transformed, if we really want to have transparency, we need to find a way that people who are buying the service, it's the only product that we buy in anything where we don't know what we're going to pay for it at the time of service. And so I really do believe that this bill moves us more into government-controlled healthcare instead of a free market, and that's why it will be a no on this bill.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I respect the concerns that were just voiced here, you know, in speaking with the consumer groups, which I have done extensively over the last 2 years that I've been working on this bill, they recognize that while it is a value to add consumer-facing transparency so consumers can shop around for health care, the truth is consumers only shop around for a very small fraction of health care costs, typically elective procedures. And there are projects going along right now to try to increase that kind of transparency. In fact, you're going to see a budget request that's in right now this year to do that very thing. But this bill is about the kind of transparency that helps us understand how hospitals are operating efficiently versus inefficiently in our state, to make it so that the businesses negotiating contracts on behalf of their employees can get the transparency to make good decisions about that. That's why this bill is supported by 5 consumer organizations in Colorado: the Colorado Consumer Health Initiative, the Colorado Center on Law and Policy, Healthier Colorado, the Colorado Children's Campaign, and the Colorado Senior Lobby. All support this bill because they believe that this will reduce costs for consumers. I ask for your support.
And is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1001 as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. House Bill 1001 is adopted. Passes. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1043.
House Bill 1043, by Representative Galindo, concerning the ability of life care institutions to post a surety bond as a form of required reserve.
Representative Galindo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1043.
To the bill, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the purpose of this bill is basically to allow retirement community businesses to use an additional form of security for their required statutory reserves while ensuring protections for the residents of those communities. So to protect the residents, Colorado requires these communities to maintain a reserve of 20% of its prior year's operating expenses to cover obligations under all life care agreements. Current statute allows 6 types of assets in the reserves. This bill would allow a 7th type of asset, a surety bond. So with that, I ask for your support.
And Representative Galindo, did we move the bill?
Yeah, I did.
Wonderful. And the question before us, is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1043. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? House Bill 1043 passes. Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the immediate consideration of House Bill 1042.
Is there any objections? Seeing none, the committee will proceed out of order for the consideration of House Bill 1042. Ms. Durando, please read the title of House Bill 1042.
House Bill 1042 by Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez concerning expanding the jurisdiction of the courts for certain vulnerable youth.
Thank you. Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1042 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the Judiciary Committee report. Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an honor to serve with you.
And such a pleasure and an honor to serve with you as well.
Members, this bill addresses an inconsistency between state and federal law and applies only in very limited circumstances. The Special Immigrant Juvenile Status was enacted in 1990 by Congress and currently includes unmarried children under the age of 21 who have been abused, abandoned, or neglected by one or both parents and who are under the jurisdiction of a state court that can make a custody decision over the child. The problem here is that Colorado courts do not always have jurisdiction to make custody decisions for kids between the ages of 18 and 21. There are very limited circumstances in which they have that ability. Those are in adoption proceedings, dependency and neglect cases, as well as juvenile delinquency cases. And they have jurisdiction over those children up until the age of 21. This bill would address the need in custody and guardianship cases to allow Colorado to catch up with the federal expansion of SIJS that happened in 2008. Thank you, and I ask for your support and a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we did hear this bill, and it was one of the aspects of the committee report was that there was an amendment that actually took out the language on sufficient credible evidence. So I just wanted to point out that that was an aspect of what occurred in the committee, and we'll have further comments on the substance of the bill later.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No! The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Carver, for assisting in as far as that we were on the committee report. And so I do apologize that I did not go through the actual committee report itself and the amendments that have been made. But going back into the original introduction of this bill, again, current proceedings that occur in juvenile delinquency cases, and dependency and neglect cases, and adoption proceedings, youth that are between the ages of 18 and 21 are allowed to apply for special immigrant juvenile status. And so this would basically be allowing the same group of youth that are also considered abused, neglected, or abandoned, that are going through custody proceedings or guardianship proceedings, to be able to also be given that same status.
Is there further discussion? Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this bill is procedurally very interesting, and I just want to take a few minutes to kind of lay the predicate. Under federal immigration law, there is a provision for special immigrant juvenile status, but they say we have our decision making, and we leave it to the states to determine under what circumstances guardianship law should be, and if they want to address this particular area. And so Colorado historically has done that for minors that are minors, that are up to age 18. What this bill would do, and only 5 other states have done it, and let me list those states: California, New York, Maryland, Nevada, Washington, have recently changed their law to say the following, which is what this bill would do, is it would change Colorado law to allow a state court to establish a guardianship under Colorado law for young people ages 18 to 21. A guardianship for ages 18 to 21. That guardianship could be under a guardian ad litem that is, you know, a state employee that does those guardianships. So that might be monitored and guardianship actually done by government personnel, or it could be a private guardian, a family member, a neighbor, and they would follow Colorado guardianship law. Again, the new part of this bill, what this bill does, would allow that, authorize that, expand Colorado state court jurisdiction to establish guardianship under Colorado law for young people ages 18 to 21. And as you probably are aware, for the vast majority of situations in Colorado, you are regarded as an adult, not a minor. As an adult, able to enter into contracts, to vote, a range of other things. Go serve your country in uniform at age 18. So, and that is certainly the case under Colorado law. So this bill is a very significant bill. The other significance is not only would it establish a guardianship for these young people, and the testimony we heard is these young people, you know, for purposes of the federal law, which I will get to, would be currently in the country undocumented, without legal status. Okay? Now, if the state court makes these findings and establishes the guardianship, this then sets the course for a pathway, and this is the American Bar Association's language, folks, on special immigrant juvenile status. This is their language. The ABA says if a state court establishes a guardianship in this circumstance that 1042 contemplates, it sets a path to lawful permanent resident status. That's the ABA's language. There is a second finding that the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, would have to make. They make, if the state court acts and does the guardianship, then the federal government makes their own determination on whether or not they are going to grant status as special immigrant juvenile status under federal law. And that provision has been in federal law since 1990, okay? 1990. So, I guess my final comment would be, and the reason why I voted against this bill, and we had a lot of very good Q&A with witnesses that were well-versed in this area. I am a bit concerned when you have only 5 states that have done this, and very recently, what the real impact would be in passing this bill. The witnesses acknowledged that they actually had absolutely no idea how many petitions we're talking about would be filed for guardianship for this new age group, age 18 to 21. No idea. I do not, so given the newness of how this has been in other states and kind of the, I am concerned and believe that we don't really know the potential impact and effect of expanding the court jurisdiction for this age group. And so I urge a no vote.
Representative McKean.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I also urge a no vote on this bill, but part of that discussion that we had in committee, and you know my want is to come here and share a little bit. I think that's our job, is to share the discussion that we've had in committee with the committee of the whole. I think that's the reason why we have this. So here I am. We had a lot of questions about how many children might be under this, and then we also had some questions about just exactly what are we talking about when we change this in state statute from 18 to 21. And personally, I do actually believe that we need to be very culturally sensitive about kind of the things that we talk about. And as a country, we have these allowances in our law for 18 to 21, but truly, what are we talking about? We are specifically talking about a group of individuals who may be subject to lives where they've experienced abuse, neglect, or abandonment. Let me use those words again while everybody's listening, because I appreciate your attentiveness so much. We're talking about individuals who may have suffered from abuse, neglect, or abandonment. So one of my questions was, how well can we vet those people? And I got a really good answer, which is we really can. We go back and we make sure that the individuals who are claiming abuse and neglect certainly have a history that predicates a decision to be made on their behalf, so that they do not have to return to a life of abuse and neglect. My biggest question I was left with after committee is, can we do that for abandonment? And I'd ask each one of you to think about this question a little bit. Can we do the same as we do for abuse and neglect for cases of abandonment? And especially when we're talking about an individual who is of the age of majority in virtually the entire rest of the world. Can we consider them to be able to avail our system of protection under the auspices of abandonment? And I would suggest no. And so for that, Madam Chair, I would move Amendment L004 and ask for it be displayed. This is a simple change, folks.
Representative McKean, please.
Yes, ma'am.
One moment, please. All right, the amendment is properly before us. Please proceed.
I will. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. Folks, this is a simple change. This strikes one word, and it strikes probably the most questionable piece of what we might be trying to do in this bill. I would urge an aye vote to strike the word abandonment. I believe that when we talk about these kind of issues, especially when we're talking about individuals who have reached the age of majority in, as I said, virtually the entire rest of the world, proving abandonment is nearly impossible. And when we talk about how we are going to go forward in changing our state statutes, I think we'd probably better do it on the basis of proof. So I would urge an aye vote on Amendment L004.
Representative Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you. This is not in line with our federal law, so I urge a no vote.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment. Representative McKee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, so here's the thing. This federal statute was created in 1990. Did we have, in 1990, tens of thousands of people approaching our southern border? Did we have some of the children's caravans coming to our southern border in 1990? This is where you might, I don't know, want to remember the 10th Amendment. And that is that we can actually decide things for ourselves on the basis of exactly what the conditions are here today. So I would urge an aye vote on this. I would urge an aye vote to remove the words abandonment, especially since circumstances have changed so dramatically since 1990, and I don't think you can prove this.
Now, is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment. Members, the question is the adoption of Amendment L004. Division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please make sure that you are seated. All those in favor of Amendment L001, please stand and remain standing in one place until the vote is taken. I'm sorry, Amendment 004 is the amendment we are discussing. Thank you. All those opposed to Amendment L004, please stand and remain standing until a count is taken. Thank you, members. You may be seated. Amendment L004 is lost. Back to the bill. Is there any further discussions? Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L005 and ask that it be properly displayed.
Amendment L005 has been properly moved and displayed. Representative Soper.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a common sense amendment that's being added. What it basically says is, if you have a felony criminal record, then you won't be able to apply for the exception under federal law. This makes a lot of sense here because, quite frankly, if you've committed a felony, you're obviously acting like an adult. Therefore, you should not be treated like a minor. I think that many of us can get behind that simple sentiment. Secondarily, it protects Coloradans because we're making a special exception within Colorado law. And to be able to say that if you have a felony record, we don't necessarily want to extend this special federal exemption to you. I believe that this is an amendment that all of us can get behind. And I ask for an aye vote. Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. I appreciate it.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, the question, is there any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a no vote on this amendment. Currently, in juvenile delinquency proceedings, there is a process in which a juvenile would apply for special immigrant juvenile status. We are talking about youth that are not a part of those proceedings, so I ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just so members are clear, federal law already states that under federal law that if you commit a felony, that will be qualified for deportation. And so this actually will conflict with federal statute, which we already have strict immigration laws, and shouldn't be in this statute. And so I ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for the sponsor, but really maybe a question for the whole body. I don't think this amendment as it's drafted actually clarifies whether you're talking about a felony within the juvenile system or an adult felony. I assume if it is a minor, it would be referring to a juvenile charge, although not necessarily. There are ways in which minors can be charged with adult felonies, but I feel like as far as drafting things with respect to criminal law goes, I don't have a lot of clarity as to whether we're simply talking about juvenile convictions, only adult convictions, or both.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this is one of the most difficult issues with this bill, is because we are talking, this bill only deals with, quite frankly, young adults, ages 18, 19, 20, and 21. which in Colorado and the vast number of states in the United States would be regarded as an adult within the criminal justice system, right? So if you are looking at the age group that we are talking about here, for criminal law purposes and the vast majority of other purposes, this age group is considered an adult, not a minor. This bill is saying, for this specific purpose, we will expand court jurisdiction in family law areas to allow for the establishment of a guardianship for persons who would otherwise be considered adults, and to make certain findings. And again, language taken out of the bill in committee that would have required sufficient credible evidence. That language was amended out of the bill in committee. And so what we are saying is, and also if you have the situation where, because of the seriousness of the crime, the minor was tried as an adult, and that's a whole nother complex area of the law. But let's get down to the core of it, shall we? We have a young person, let's say age 19 or 20, who now is seeking the guardianship under this bill. And this young person was convicted of a felony under Colorado law. Felonies being the serious crimes as deemed by Colorado. And so this would require the judge to look at, before making the decision on doing a guardianship that's being established specifically for what purpose. It is a guardianship specifically tied to the federal immigration provision on special immigrant juvenile status, and with the court decision laying the predicate, making that finding and doing the guardianship, again, the ABA, American Bar Association's language, it establishes the predicate for now applying for lawful permanent residency status under the provision of federal immigration law, special immigrant juvenile status, where the federal government is relying on the state court to make those factual findings and to make that determination under state law. So I would ask members to look at what the scope of this is. This isn't any criminal conviction. We're not talking misdemeanors. It is limited to those who have been convicted of a felony, and having the court be aware of that and have that be part of this proceeding. I ask for a yes vote on the amendment.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't speak on this any further. We didn't get any clarification on what my actual question was, whether that felony refers to also offenses within the juvenile system. And I'll just note, if your understanding of the justice system, how it works in the state of Colorado, is that anybody who gets a juvenile felony conviction is acting as an adult or some sort of lost person who can never be back again, you fundamentally don't understand how the justice system works in this state. To say that a young person who gets charged with a juvenile level felony is an irredeemable criminal, you've never been in that court, you've never seen how juvenile justice works in the state. I'd invite you to go take a look at it as somebody who writes these laws, because the juvenile justice system is remarkably different than the adult system. This amendment and a lot of the debate that's happened in this bill has completely conflated the two of those things, which just betrays a lack of understanding of how the two different systems work. And so I oppose the amendment for a number of reasons, but I would just suggest, as we have these conversations about the criminal justice system in the state, we don't simply conflate adult felonies and juvenile felonies because the systems are not even close to each other in how they actually operate.
Representative Gonzalez-Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bottom line is that regardless, with a felony, you don't get a green card. And this has nothing to do with actual guardianship. So I just want to make that clear and ask for no vote.
Representative Carver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I appreciate the comments, and you're quite right that the federal agency will make its own decision about whether to issue a green card. It can't issue a green card without the predicate of the state court finding, but it will make its own decision on whether to issue a green card. But it is also true, and this came out in testimony on the bill, that regardless of what the federal decision is, that guardianship remains in place. So you have now a guardianship that has been established for individuals age 18, 19, 20, and 21. And it could very well be pursuant to a guardian ad litem, which is a government employee. It is a government supervised guardianship that is ongoing. And quite frankly, I just got some of the numbers just to give you an idea of what has happened in the last 5 years on individuals seeking special immigrant juvenile status. In 2011, the government granted about 1,869 petitions. Last year, the number was 15,000. And with the addition of the 5 states which have expanded jurisdiction even more, which is what this bill intends to do, again, do we really know what kind of demands are going to be placed in the court system and our public guardianships under this bill? Because if they qualify, then they would qualify for a public guardianship, which, again, a governmental employee would be doing the guardianship piece, the guardianship ad litem. So I urge support of this bill.
Representative McKean.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I urge support of this amendment as well. And to my right honorable colleague who talks about the difference between our systems of justice, some of us are incredibly aware of that. And truly what this seeks to do is not say it disqualifies someone. It says look at the body of evidence to either support or not support the claim or the request of guardianship status. When we're talking about this, we're not drawing a clear line. We are leaving this up to the courts to say, is this a status we wish to confer on the basis of everything? And if you were to refer to the bill on page 3, some of that important language was on lines 3 and 4, which says that the court determines there is sufficient credible evidence to support the findings. This amendment would actually go toward the original intent of this bill before it was amended in committee to say, you know what? This is important information for a judge to have so that they can make a finding. Do we trust our courts? Do we trust our district court judges to do the things that they need to do to protect the interest of someone who needs the protection of the state? And I ask that you guys remember that that's really truly what we're saying here, is that we're saying, do individuals need the protection of the state and to avail themselves of our federal statutes that involve this special status? So we're not just sitting here saying, you know what, we're, all of us being immigrants, we're pulling the ladder up behind us. We're saying, is there enough information for the court to make the right kind of decision? I support this amendment. I urge you to support it as well.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer Amendment L007 as a substitute amendment. Oh.
Please proceed.
As a substitute amendment, and ask that it be properly displayed.
The substitute amendment L007 is properly before us. Representative Soper, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've listened to the arguments and the criticisms from this debate, and this amendment seeks to address those because there's many wise people in this chamber, and I've listened to each one of your arguments, and this specifically addresses adult convictions in this state, or convictions as an adult in this state. It certainly clarifies that it's a felony criminal conviction. We took out the word record, so we're very clear that it has to be a conviction. This goes to the heart of what we're trying to do, and as was pointed out earlier, it also seeks to reemphasize what federal law already does. We don't want individuals who have a felony criminal conviction as an adult in this state being granted this special exception in the law to be a child immigrant status. And I think that's very important to remember. This isn't just a broad, sweeping change in law. What we're doing here is we're just changing a very minute area of the law, and we're actually bringing it in line with everything else that the bill seeks to address. The bill seeks to expand from 18 to 21, which is already in federal law. This amendment seeks to further put us in line with federal law by adding the felony side of things. We make ourselves unequivocally clear that we don't want to convict minors. That's why we say adults. And an adult is defined as someone over the age of 18 in this state. And I would urge a yes vote on this substitute amendment.
Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I ask for a no vote on this amendment. This is the inappropriate politicization of Colorado's kids. That is what's happening right now. This is a guardianship case, not a criminal case. If a person has a felony conviction in the state of Colorado, they are subject to deportation. That's federal law. That aligns with state law. What we're trying to do here is align guardianship matters with federal law. I ask for a no vote on this amendment, a no vote on the substitute amendment, and a yes on the bill.
Representative McKee.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I spoke in support of the amendment before it was substituted. I speak in support of this substitute amendment. And here's where I'll make the argument. We're not talking about deporting kids with felonies. What we're actually talking about is how does the court get the best set of information to make the decision about conferring this special status? So we're not sitting here going, hey, if you've got this felony, we're going to deport you. What we're saying is there may be a reason you need to be here. There may be a reason that you have suffered abuse and neglect, and you need to be in this country in the status that you could have so that you don't have to go home to abuse and neglect. Don't you think that that is an incredible division point in this conversation? That what we're actually saying is we are not suggesting that these individuals be deported. We are saying let's make sure we look at the entire panoply of evidence that we have to make sure that we make the right decision for these individuals. Support this substitute amendment.
Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first sentence says, unless otherwise prohibited by federal law. Would Representative Herod please enlighten us again what her objection is to this amendment?
Representative Herod.
While I appreciate the reading of the amendment that we see before us, you have to read the amendment in context with current state and federal law. In context with current state and federal law, this is an inappropriate amendment. It's the politicization of our kids. And I ask for a no vote. Happy to show you offline statute.
Is there any further discussion on the substitute amendment? Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, this is a really good amendment. I like it. It doesn't say kids in the amendment. It says adults. And I want to be very clear to everyone sitting out in this chamber. It's adults we're talking about. And the substitute amendment here makes very clear that we're talking about adults. So if you're a kid, how could you be an adult? I mean, I think that that's a very easy question that you have to answer. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the substitute amendment? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the substitute amendment L007. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The substitute amendment L007 fails. We are back to the original amendment, L005. Is there any further discussion on amendment L005? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L005. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Amendment L005 fails. To the bill, Representative Gutierrez. I'm sorry? Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, members, you can just see here all the discussion we've had about something that seems so easy and convenient on a matter that does have grave concern. The difference between what we're talking about, should people that are 18 to 21 be included under this type of law? Here we've spent the better part of an hour just trying to define one little narrow space as it applies to this piece of legislation. I was looking at the fiscal note, which I'm sure you all have here for 1042, and on page 2 of the fiscal note, they say that it's assumed that under the Judicial Department that it'll be just a minor footnote for that. And under the Office of the Child's Representative, once again, it's just minor. Well, my wife, my good wife, was a guardian ad litem for the better part of 10 years or longer, both for the GAL office as well as a private GAL. And I have another relative who serves as a guardian ad litem. They are worked very, very hard. They have many, many cases every single day. And I checked with them, I won't say which one, but I checked with them, and in their educated experience and belief is that under this legislation, under this, is it would definitely have a greater fiscal impact. And so with that in mind, Madam Chairman, under pursuant to House Rule 32AC, I am requesting a new fiscal note that is signed. And I'm turning it in. Majority Leader Garnett. So I'm requesting a new fiscal note.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under Rule 32C, Representative Liston has met that requirement. So what we will do is we will lay over House Bill 1042 until a new fiscal note is prepared.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, House Bill 1042 will be laid over as requested by the Majority Leader. All right, moving on. Mr. Randall, will you please read the title of House Bill 1068?
House Bill 1068, by Representative Arndt, Senator Moreno, concerning the elimination of the requirement of the State Board of Health to comply with certain statutory requirements concerning the preparation of operational planning functions of the State Board with the Executive Director of the Department of Public Health and Environment.
To the bill, Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 19-1068. There is no committee report.
Properly moved. To the bill, Representative.
Thank you, members. This came out of the Statutory Revision Committee by 7-1, and what this bill does is it repeals an obsolete statutory provision requiring the State Board of Health to perform certain operational planning functions because they are conducted by the Department of Public Health and Environment. And I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Representative. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1068. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. House Bill 1068 passes.
Do me a solid there.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1070.
House Bill 1070 by Representative Arnold, Senator Tate, concerning the repeal of statutory provisions regarding the Department of Public Health and Environment to test substances that are purported to have the value in the treatment of cancer.
Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 19-1070. There is no committee report.
To the bill, Representative Arndt.
This bill, we're cleaning up the statutes, people. This bill removes a section of statute that is obsolete, as this work is performed on the federal level by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. We haven't been doing this in Colorado for 50 years. It's time to clean it up. I urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Representative Arndt. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1070. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. House Bill 1070 passes. Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the committee rise and report.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come to order. Representative Jackson. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report that under its consideration following attached bills being the second reading and their recommendations thereon. House Bill 1001 is amended. House Bill 1043, House Bill 1068, House Bill 1070 passes third reading and goes to place accounted for third reading and final passage.
Representative Jackson. You have heard the motion. There are amendments at the desk. Mr. Randall, please read the Beckman amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Beckman moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee and not adopting the following Beckman Amendment L019 to House Bill 1001 to show that said amendment passed and that House Bill 1001 is amended passed.
Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would ask for an aye vote on this amendment. Once again, I will move House Bill 19-1001 and ask for an aye vote. Oh, I move the Beckman Amendment. Thank you for the training. This bill, or this amendment, allows for increased transparency, and it is really our opportunity to contain cost for those that are paying for insurance and are staying at our hospitals and using our surgery centers. This is a good step to provide consumers transparency, and I would ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I ask for a no vote on this amendment. As we discussed during second reading, this is a reporting request that is largely already happening in the annual report from the Colorado Healthcare Affordability and Sustainability Enterprise. Furthermore, this amendment contains a provision that would eliminate the entire enterprise if this reporting requirement is not met. Now, that is incredibly dangerous for rural hospitals in Colorado who depend on these dollars to stay afloat. The enterprise was put in place to draw down federal matching dollars to help put dollars into rural hospitals to make sure they could stay afloat, incentivize high-quality hospitals, and increasingly, with the passage of this bill, will help incentivize the shift from volume to value in how we're paying for health care in Colorado. I ask for a no vote.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speakers. And members, I ask for a yes vote. The idea that this is somehow going to affect rural hospitals, I just don't think that is true. The amendment itself says that if their profit margins are such that they can absorb this and not do this. So if they don't have large enough profit margins and they depend on the fee, nothing happens to the fee. So we can't, I think that's kind of disingenuous to say that this is going to shut down rural hospitals. It's just not the case. The amendment itself actually explains that the profit margin has to be as such that they can absorb the fee. It's in plain language in the amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the House is the adoption of the Beckman Amendment. Mr. Randall, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representatives Cutter and Humphrey. Representative Cutter, please vote. Oh, there we go. Representative Cutter, that's a $1 fine. Mr. Randall, please close the machine. With 23 yes votes, 41 no votes, and 1 vacant, the amendment fails. Mr. Randall, please read the Neville Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Neville moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee and not adopting the following Neville Amendment L021 to House Bill 1001 to show the said amendment passed and that House Bill 1001 as amended passed.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Neville Amendment to the Committee of the Whole.
Please
Ask
proceed.
that to be displayed. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, and we had some discussion on this, but just to remind you, because we had some other bills too, what we have before us in HB 19-1001 is an attempt at transparency, but the transparency is only to the government. Right now, according to state law, we prohibit hospitals from disclosing a fee that we mandate that they collect from their customers. And we actually prohibit them from disclosing that to their own customers, to our citizens, to the people of Colorado. This amendment simply says that they shall disclose this. It is true transparency for the citizens of Colorado. It's not changing the fee. It's just saying we're going to disclose it. It's the ultimate level of transparency for the people of Colorado, and our yes vote.
Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask for a no vote on this amendment. My concern with this amendment is that it is trying to give consumers a piece of information that is completely irrelevant to their care. The provider fee that is collected per hospital bed day by every hospital in the state draws down federal matching dollars such that every patient gets more out of this than they put in. So in fact, by the existence of the entire enterprise, every patient is getting a break on their costs because of the way we're helping them afford their care. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Soper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hopefully I have everyone's attention. In the Health and Insurance Committee, I was the only Republican that voted for House Bill 1. Being in rural Colorado, we definitely need more transparency, and I was very pleased with the work of Representative Kennedy to be able to work with the Hospital Association and to get them on board. But I'm actually going to be speaking for this amendment because I believe as part of transparency that we shouldn't be lying to Coloradans. We should at least tell them that there is a fee that's being collected and that that's part of that total package of transparency. So I would urge a yes vote on this particular amendment, and thank you for your good work.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, again, I just want to urge a yes vote. To say that a fee that we mandate is collected, that's passed on to the consumer, is irrelevant to that consumer's care, to that citizen's care, I find that highly disturbing to say that that's irrelevant when we mandate this fee just for them visiting a hospital, staying the night in the hospital, and to say that that's irrelevant to their care. It's totally relevant. It's something that we mandate on them. It's passed on into their charges. We should disclose it. Let's be transparent. I urge a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the House is the Neville amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please vote. Mr. Randall, please close the machine. With 23 aye votes, 42 no votes, and 22 aye votes, 42 no votes, and 1 vacant, the amendment fails. Mr. Randall, please read the Buck amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Buck moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Buck motion to re-refer House Bill 1001 as amended to the Health and Insurance Committee to show that House Bill 1001 as amended was re-referred to the Health and Insurance Committee.
Representative Buck.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I move the Buck amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole. Folks, this is a huge, huge bill. And we are not all together. If this was unanimous, absolutely, that would be great. But as you can see, after 5 amendments and probably 4 from the other side, this is too big of a bill to all take in today, this quickly, this fast. I absolutely ask you all, please, to put this back to committee so there can be more work, so we will see a final product, so we all can come together, so we can all understand this bill. So I ask that you take it back to the Health and Insurance Committee, please. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would urge a no vote on the Buck amendment to the Committee of the Whole, primarily due to the fact that both sides of the aisle have commended the sponsor for the work that he has done on this piece of legislation. He gave out packets, the amendments to members of the committee. The committee has been down here debating this issue throughout the morning, and I think we have done a thorough job. So I want to commend this, the sponsor, my good friend from Jefferson County, and I would urge a no vote on this amendment to the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Ransom.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge a aye vote on the amendment. When I served on the health committees, there were times that we saw multiple amendments, some of which worked in concert, and some of which had to be introduced in a certain order because they, want a later amendment would tweak something that we had done earlier. And so I think it's really important not just for the committee to work on the bill as it stands now with these 5 amendments added, but also to let the Hospital Association and other stakeholders come in and testify to the committee. Yes, I understand that the sponsors have given out copies of the amendments to everybody prior to this morning's debate, but we were not able to let the stakeholders come in and testify on these amendments. They testified on the original bill when it was heard in committee. They did not have the ability to speak on the record about all these amendments and about the bill as it currently stands. I just think as a body that is representative of the state and of all the stakeholders, including the Hospital Association, I think that we owe it to them to let them come in and let us know exactly what they think about each one of the amendments and not just keep pushing it down the road and presuming that us getting the amendments before our debate here is sufficient. So I do urge an aye vote on the amendment, and thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the Buck Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please vote. Representatives Larson, Lewis, McKean, Sandridge, and Snyder. Mr. Randall, please close the machine. With 23 aye votes, 41 no votes, and 1 vacant, the Buck Amendment fails. There are no further amendments at the desk. The question before the House is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. So we'll do, can I do the tribute before we do announcements since President Benson's here? Right into the tribute. Will you tell Janet to come on up? Representatives Buck and Caraveo. Please close the machine. With 45 aye votes, 19 no votes, and 1 vacant, the report of the Committee of the Whole is passed. Members, we're now going to do a tribute for CU President Bruce Benson, and then we'll do announcements and introductions.
Mr. Randall, please read the title. Sorry, Mr. Randall, please read the tribute.
State of Colorado. The Senate and House of Representatives convene in the 72nd General Assembly hereby extend sincere commendations to Bruce Benson, President, University of Colorado. The Colorado General Assembly is happy to recognize and honor the contributions of CU President Bruce Benson, who will retire from the university in July. He became CU President in March of 2008 and is the longest-serving CU President in more than 65 years. Benson successfully navigated the choppy waters and has CU well positioned to serve our state and its students as Colorado's flagship university. While president, Bruce raised more private dollars than any other president at CU. Philanthropy provides scholarships for students, supports faculty research, and adds value to CU programs. Efficiencies will be one of President Benson's chief legacies. Since day one, he has focused on creating efficiencies, streamlining bureaucracy, instituting better business practices, and cutting red tape. Bruce has made it a point to partner with the Colorado legislature during his time at CU In the past decade, more than 100 pieces of legislation were passed that allow CU and all of higher education in Colorado to operate more efficiently and effectively in serving our students and our state. Bruce has also been a champion for diversity in all areas. He has worked hard to make CU a national leader in ensuring that campuses are forums for free speech and places where ideas are discussed and debated in respectful ways. The Colorado General Assembly is pleased to honor CU President Bruce Benson today. He leaves the university a better place than he found it. Given all that he has accomplished and all that he has done for our community and our state, we expect that we have not heard the last from Bruce Benson. On request of Speaker of the House K.C. Becker and Representative Kevin Van Winkle and Senator Stephen Fenberg and Kevin Priola, given this 29th day of January at the state capitol in Denver, Colorado.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Everyone, please be seated. It is my honor to bring this tribute to recognize the contributions of President Benson and his wife Marcy, not only to the CU system, but to the entire state. His departure of CU this coming summer is just going to be an end of an era that has been critical to the success of the university, but all of higher ed. In Colorado. He has been a tremendous leader, a tremendous fundraiser, in a really transformative period at the university. As you all know, our higher ed budgets are always strained. He has brought efficiencies to the university system. He has brought fundraising. He has brought new programs, really advanced various parts of the university like engineering and bioscience. And so it is a real loss to the CU system to see President Benson move on. And so I think if a tribute is the least we can do, because he has really contributed so much more to the state and to the CU system, probably than he's ever gotten back. So thank you for your contributions.
Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and our words will be little remembered here, but his impact on the state of Colorado will last for decades and decades. How he took the CU system from what was chiefly the Boulder campus and took it statewide to rural Colorado, the West Slope, the Eastern Plains, north and south, is second to none. He's been the rock for our higher ed system. He's been the rock for the state of Colorado that we have depended upon in good times and bad, and it is such an honor to have him in our presence today. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Minority Leader. Speaker Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. All throughout the gallery are members of the CU advocates who came here to see the tribute for President Benson. We also have sitting on the side some of the CU regents and other honored guests from the system. So please, after this tribute ends, if we could take a minute to welcome our guests, President Benson, his wife Marcy, and others. And thank you to the CU advocates who came today.
Thank you. We will now take a brief break so we can greet the honorees.
Members, we are not adjourned yet. We're not in recess. So please don't leave. We still have announcements and introductions. The House will come back to order. Announcements and introductions. Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was going to move quickly to help some of our chairs, but I see one of our chairs coming down now, so maybe we should give her some time for an announcement.
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Transportation and Local Government. We will gavel in at exactly 5 minutes from the adjournment here to start our meeting. We've got a lot of people waiting to talk to us, and I want to make sure we can do it in a timely fashion and still get you to whatever lunch you want to get to. So exactly 5 minutes from gavel, we will start our meeting.
I have a quick announcement. Representative Landgraf will substitute for Representative Ransom in Education today only, and Representative Pelton will substitute for Representative Van Winkle in Business today only. Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And what Representative Gray said about transportation goes for the Health and Insurance Committee. Please be downstairs in room 107 in 5 minutes. If you want to go to lunch at a decent time and still make your afternoon committee, I urge you to, let's get out of here. Thanks.
Representative Crafthart.
Thank you. Business Affairs and Labor Committee will also start in 5 minutes after the gavel, so scurry on over. We have a hard stop at 5 to 12. Thank you.
Representative Escar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For those of you who are interested, the Joint Budget Committee will not be meeting today. Thank you.
Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee will be meeting at 1:30 this afternoon in LSBA to hear 3 bills, House Bill 1101, House Bill 1111, and House Bill 1081. We'll also be doing our Joint Rule 25 meeting with the JBC tomorrow, Wednesday, January 30th at 8:15 a.m. in LSBA. Please bring your purple books.
Are there any other announcements and introductions? If not, Mr. Randall, please read the reports of committee reference.
Committee on Finance, subject chairs, the merits goes following. House Bill 1005 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 1026 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations. House Bill 1062 be amended as follows. National Amendment be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. House Bill 1085 be amended as follows. National Amendment be referred to the Committee on Appropriations as favorable recommendation. Committee on Rural Affairs and Agriculture, subject chairs, the merits goes following. House Bill 1047 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. House Bill 1082 be amended as follows. National Amendment be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. House Bill 1088 be amended as follows. National Amendment be referred to the Committee on Finance as favorable recommendation.
Printing report.
Chief Clerk,
Printing report will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate.
Message from the Senate will be printed in the Journal. Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit.
Message from the Reviser will be printed in the Journal. Assistant Majority Leader Kennedy, or Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until later today.
The House, seeing no objection, the House will be in recess till later today. Great.